Is God perfect? Let's consider. Hello, philosophers. I'm Chico. Welcome to the Philosopher Channel summary of the Summa Theologica. Today we are in part 1, question 4, article 1, whether God is perfect. Now, when we say perfect here, it's probably not quite as exciting as it sounds. I think when we say perfect, in your mind you think doesn't make mistakes. And although that is probably like a conclusion that you can actually reach from this article, perfection here means more something like completeness. The way Aquinas will put it is that he lacks nothing in its mode of perfection. So the question here is God complete? Something more like that. And Aquinas' position is that yes, God is perfect. So he quotes Matthew 5:48, "Be you perfect as also your heavenly Father is perfect." So in the Bible it says that God is perfect, therefore he is perfect. As an aside here, before we get into the arguments, he mentions that Aristotle in Book 12 of the Metaphysics talks about how the Pythagoreans and Leucippus were attributed to God, or attributed to the first principle that it was not perfect. And the reason is because they thought the first principle was matter, and matter is an imperfect thing. So matter being, being a potential thing, it is not a complete thing. It is just potential waiting to be actualized. So for that reason, they made that mistake, he would say. So let's look at his arguments. Argument 1, an agent as such is in the state of actuality. Insofar as it is an agent, it is acting. It's in a state of actuality, just as matter as such is in a state of potentiality. 2, so the first active principle, in other words, the first agent, must be most actual, right? It's going to be, since it's the active force of all, it's going to be the most active, the most actual. 3, a thing is perfect which lacks nothing of the mode of its perfection, right? It's totally complete. It doesn't lack anything. 4, so a thing is perfect in proportion to its state of actuality. So if it's not, its potential, it's lacking something. It doesn't have that thing. But if it's actual, then it has that thing. So it's perfect when it lacks nothing in that mode of its perfection. 5, so the first active principle is most perfect, right? It's the thing that's in the most state of actuality, so it's the most perfect thing. 6, God is the first active principle. Therefore, God is most perfect. And there are 3 objections that are given to this position. The first one, we say a thing is perfect if it is completely made, but God is not made. So God is not perfect. And of course, this seems just like a cheap argument, right? Like if it's perfectly, we call things perfect if they are completely made. We could just drop the made part and say we call things perfect if they are complete. It's the made seems like an extra thing an extraneous thing we just throw on there. But his reply is that, first of all, Gregory says that though our lips can only stammer, we yet chant the high things of God. So starting us off to let us know when we talk about God, we're not always talking, like we're barely making it. We're not always speaking perfectly when we speak about God. So 1, created things are called perfect when from potentiality they are brought into actuality. 2, this is the way of perfection. 3, generally perfect signifies whatever is not wanting in actuality. 4, so that which is not made is improperly called perfect. So when we're talking about God and we call him perfect, we are, in other words, saying he is like these things that are made, that are completed in their being made, right, brought into actuality and from potentiality, but completed in their actuality, except for he is not brought from potentiality into actuality. He just already is pure actuality. So when we use the word perfect, we're using it improperly, but it still communicates what we intend for it to communicate. That's his idea. Objection 2, God is the first beginning of things. 2, the beginnings of things seem to be imperfect. So, for example, seed is the beginning of animal and vegetable life. 3, so God is imperfect. All right, so the reply to this, a potential being can only be reduced into act by some being already actual. So this is something we've already seen a lot of. In order for you to go from potentiality to actuality, you need something that's already actual to bring you from potentiality to actuality. 2, so previous to that which is potential must be that which is actual. 3, so the material principle, which with us is found to be imperfect, cannot be absolutely primal, but must be preceded by something perfect. So the seed, even though it seems like the first thing, there must be something before the seed, right? And this is kind of odd, right? It's like the chicken and the egg kind of argument. But he's going to say so the chicken and the egg, what came first, chicken or the egg? In order for there to be an egg, there must be a chicken, he's saying. And of course, then you say, well, where did the chicken come from? Well, in order for there to be even eggs and chickens, there must be this first being, right? Pure actuality that brings these chickens and eggs into being in the first place. That's Aquinas' argument right here. All right, finally, objection 3. God's essence is existence. And we saw this before in part 1, question 3, article 4. So existence is most universal and receptive of all modification. What does that mean? That means that you can slap whatever you want to in front of the word existence, and existence can describe everything, right? So rabbit exists, dog exists, table exists, chair exists. Existence goes for everything. It modifies anything. Whereas you can only say certain things are red, or certain things are smooth, or certain things are 6 foot tall, So existence, it says in 3, seems most imperfect. Why? Because it is like this nebulous thing that anything can be attributed to. Remember again that imperfect means not complete. So if you are receptive of modification, that means that you're not complete. You can be completed by being modified. So this thing can be modified by anything. So it is receptive of modification. 4, so God is imperfect. If God is existence and existence can be modified by anything, then God is one of those things. Then God is imperfect. The reply is, nothing has actuality except so far as it exists. So existence is compared to all things as that by which they are made actual. So existence is that which actuates all things, even their forms. So existence is not compared to other things as the receiver is to the received, but rather as the received to the receiver. And he says, when therefore I speak of the existence of man or horse or anything else, existence is considered a formal principle and as something received, and not as that which exists. 5, so existence is the most perfect of all things. So what is he saying here? Well, existence isn't like some receptacle into which you put things. Like, here's existence and you modify it by putting in dog or cat or something like that. Instead, it's the reverse. It's like dog exists, cat exists, something like that. So you have the reverse kind of a relationship when it comes to existence. And existence, like he says, is what actuates all things. It makes those things to be what they are. So insofar as they exist, they have their forms, right? They have what they are, and they are, in other words, perfect. So existence, he says, is actually the most perfect of all things. It is the completer of all those things. And if God is existence, then of course God would be the most perfect of all things. If he's pure existence, then he is pure perfection. There you go. That's it for this article. Please don't forget to support this project with my Patreon page, link in the description. Like, subscribe, share, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.